Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Death By, where contestants will earn reps for their arguments for a chance to stand on top of the podium pedestal. I am your host, Lauren Kalil. Whoever I decide has the best argument through the final round will earn 30 seconds to talk about a topic of their choosing. On today's episode, we have two-time Affiliate Cup champion and seminar staff head trainer, James Hobart. CrossFit Games athlete and proven head coach, Tim Paulson. And semifinal athlete, Ellia Miller. Welcome to the show, everybody. I can't believe it. We are almost to Texas. The next time I see you guys, we will be in Texas, at least some of us. How's it going? I'm going to keep doing it to you, James.
It's all right. I can take it.
Ready
for
the heat.
Last minute, he's just
heat,
gonna.
We're getting ready to be in 105-degree heat or whatever misery it's going to be in Texas. And
No, you're going to be in an air-conditioned arena. It's 2024. Like, we have indoor plumbing. Everybody needs to relax.
We have indoor plumbing.
Did you guys see there was like that volcano that had the lightning storm like striking the volcano? And I was like, imagine going back 2,000 years and seeing that. Like, I'd be like, I'm out. I'm done with this. I'm out of this planet. I want a different planet. I'd be out. That must have been so scary.
Yeah.
So, Tim, have you been doing heat training then to get ready to watch CrossFit?
honestly, it's been like that. Like even Pennsylvania, like it feels like it's been over 100 for like a week and a half straight. So it's been like pretty unpleasant, like broadly. So I think I'll be okay.
Okay. Well, we'll see. If not, just go inside, sit in a corner, cool down. Let's get into it, y'all. Let's play Death By. We have some insight into the programming at the CrossFit Games, and looking specifically at the amount of running programmed thus far. They have a longer run event in event 1, the run and swim, and then we'll have running tested in 2 other time domains in event 6 with a field sprint and a mile run, potentially carrying a sandbag. So, should the CrossFit Games test running more than once? James Hobart, we will let you kick off topic number 1.
Yes. Great. Next question. Yeah, I absolutely think they should test it more than once. And I think there was no running in the open, no running in the quarterfinals. Semifinals, we had 2 times on the Echo bike, and then there was 5 by 800 meter runs. So that's 2.5 miles ish. I don't know. I'm not great at math. I also think historically, if you look at how the games has tested running, we see it multiple times. I don't know if this is a term, and somebody will probably flack me for saying this, but it's a very CrossFit-y thing to do. Personally, I like the running tests more than the machine tests for a lot of reasons. I think you can make foot race really exciting. I do think if you're going to test running, I think it's important to have it tested the same way you'd view heavyweight plus lightweight. So you do need a longer run, maybe attached to a second thing. And then you need some shorter runs, ideally, in my mind, put into like a mixed modality workout. So where you're seeing other elements put in there. I even think you could test running more than 2 times, but that is just because I think, especially in the time domains we test them in, it's just such an effective test to gauge somebody's fitness, especially coupled with other things, i.e. lifting. So huge fan, even though I've always sucked at it personally. I've liked being tested at it, and I've liked when I've gotten better at it. So test away running.
Ooh, test away running. I'm also bad at it, but I don't want to see it programmed more specifically for me. But when you do it, you get better.
Yeah,
Starting off strong, James. 3
and you
points
just posted
for you.
about doing things that are outside of your comfort zone, I think. That was your post, something like that.
That actually was my post today. So thank you for staying up to date on my Instagram.
Bam.
We'd
job,
love
James.
to see that.
Just trying to get extra points. I'm just trying to
I
anything I
gave
can.
you 3 points
I know.
before you even sucked up to me, and I love to hear that.
Perfect.
Tim, should we see multiple running events at the games?
I mean, I agree with everything James said, but my answer is no. Just because I think historically we've done it a lot. There's always been multiple running events, and I think it's kind of become a staple of what the games is. And there's no doubt that running is a fantastic application of fitness. It requires a lot of training to get better at it in different modalities, different time domains, things like that. But I guess I also don't see why we always need to test running in multiple different time domains. Like we only ever get on the rower maybe once. So like, why can't we do, 30 cal rows and then 150 cal rows in another workout? And like, just as an example, there's so many monostructural elements that can be looped into the programming of the games, especially when you have as much access to equipment, setups, all of that stuff that they do. I guess I just don't see why it always has to be we run 3 times. Like, why don't we run once and row 3 times, or run once and ski 3 times, or echo bike 3 times, or like, I guess I just don't necessarily see why it always has to be running that gets tested in 3 different time domains. Um, so I guess my answer would be like, I don't yes, the game should, but I don't think it should every single year, so that we know that you always have to be good at running a 400, a mile, and a 5K. Like, I mean, yes, you should be training those things as an athlete because they're going to have fantastic carryover to a lot of other things. But, why not test athletes 1,000-meter row, 2K row, and 5K row? Like, why not put that on display as well in various forms? Because I don't think anybody would disagree that rowing sucks just as much with thrusters as running sucks with thrusters. Like, it's just as, equal of a test of fitness, depending on how you blend it all together, obviously. So anyway, that's my long-winded way of saying yes, they should, but not all the time.
Do you think it's a watchability thing, that it's more entertaining to watch somebody on a run than on a rower?
I mean, yeah, probably. Honestly, I think the biggest reason is that it's hard to test running in other stages of the season, whereas it's easier to test machines at various stages in the season. Like, it's easier to have a one size fits all the athletes are doing the same course, the same distance at the games, versus when you put it at semifinals, there's a lot of variance based on the track they have available, unless you use runners or something like that. And it's easier to get rowers and echo bikes and plan that into semifinal events than it is to try to have semifinals plan out an 800-meter run course. Like, that requires a lot more potential media. Like, you need more cameras, you need drones, you need all these things to cover a running event, and they can do that at the game. So yeah, I think it's no one's going to doubt that it's more fun to watch. But I think, like, again, we kind of talked about the marathon row 1 or 2 episodes ago. Like, they have the wherewithal to set up, like, the monitors all hooked up to a screen. So it's like, yeah, maybe if there's 1,000-meter rows inside of a workout, like, you see the boats of how far ahead XYZ is, you see the pace you're rowing, and like, I don't know. Again, it's not as exciting as watching a foot race where people are throwing elbows and all that, but I think you could do it. And I'm not saying they should, but I just don't think that running needs to be put on such a pedestal as, like, we have to do this in all these different time domains. Like, we have to do a sprint, we have to do a mid-length, and we have to do a long every year, or it's not the games. I just don't think that needs to be a part of the formula for success necessarily.
Okay, still a solid counter. I'll give you 3 points, Tim. Ellia, where are you on the side of the fence, with James or with Tim?
I mean, I feel like they're kind of on the same side of the fence because they both said yes. Tim just had the caveat of it doesn't have to happen every year. And I think that's valid. I kind of equate it to, do we need to test snatch cycling if we tested a heavy snatch in the games? And it's like, maybe, I don't know if it fits in the programming, why not? There's no reason that you would have to say, no, we can't put snatches in this workout because we already tested a max snatch as the lift. Like, you can still put light snatches in a workout and it doesn't, as long as it's still a well-rounded test all around, it doesn't affect the programming. And I think it's the same with running. If you have a long run, if you have a short run, if you have a mid distance run, they all test different things. I do think that running is a lot more exciting from a viewability standpoint. I think the pace boats on the marathon row was a solution for something that was already challenging to deal with. Like, they already knew it was going to be boring, so the pace boats was the least boring option. But I still think that compared to watching an actual foot race on the ground, pace boats are kind of boring. So I don't know that running is going to be tested in 3 time domains at the games. I think the run swim will be just a straight run, but I have a feeling the field sprint, the 1,600 meter, or both are going to be more than just a run. It's going to be something with that sandbag, maybe an obstacle course, hurdles. Like I don't think it's just going to be straight up running for event 6. So we'll see.
I like the speculation on the programming. That always gets us excited. 2 points for Ellia. I'm curious if, because of course we have a lot of noise on social media. People are like, another running test, another running test. Do you guys collectively think that that's just people complaining to complain, or is there some validity to the whiners?
Now everybody's
Social media
perspective is equally valid.
That's very PC of you, James. No, social media is a cesspit. Like, I mean, that's just people complaining to complain, honestly. Like, again, I think we need to test running, but I just think that, again, I think if the expectation is set that we're going to run 2 to 3 times a year, every year at the games, like, yes, athletes are going to obviously train their running no matter what, but I don't see why we have to do that. Like from a viewability standpoint or whatever, it's like, as fans of the sport of fitness, like, who else? Like, yeah, I love to see a foot race on people finishing the 400 strong. And don't get me wrong, I'm very excited. I hope it's just a straight mile on the track where you're watching people run laps and like see who dies, falls off, who makes a move. I think it'll be super exciting to watch. But like as fans of the sport, like I also like watching people die on machines. Like I like to see who's going to sell their soul in a rower. Like
Like
that
you
to me
on the
is
bike.
equally, yeah. But like to me, like that's
Highlight
equally as
moment.
enticing because as CrossFitters, as CrossFit athletes, it's like we know what that feels like. We know how fit and how mentally capable you have to be to do that to yourself. So like yeah, I would want like I do like to see that, and I think it's very entertaining. Like I think it's as entertaining as watching someone run 400 meters, especially because running doesn't always the pain doesn't always show on your face when you're running. Sometimes it shows in your posture when you cross the finish line, but like when you see someone dying on like a bike or a rower, you're usually pretty well aware that they're dying.
As long
But
as Tim Paulson or Ethan Helbig is in the games, I think we need Echo Bike at least 3 times.
I'm not going to disagree.
Definitely a highlight moment. But Tim actually made a good segue into topic number 2. We're going to talk about viewership. What encourages this? And it's going to be a this or that question. So, programming something like a mile for time where many viewers can compare their results and really understand maybe what the athlete is going through, or is programming something unique that might be more difficult to follow along as a viewer but is visually more interesting? Which of the two encourages viewership? And Tim, we're going to let you start topic number 2 here.
I'm going to get 0 points for this answer, and that's okay with me because I
Okay.
think I think honestly, like you just need a mix of both. Like I think that's what I guess I would say more towards the latter. So I would say more towards something unique that might be a little bit more difficult to follow because again, the games is meant to be a test where we can test elements that we don't necessarily see at semifinals that are unique to this sport that encourage athletes to be able to figure out, a slightly nuanced skill, think on their feet. Like all of those things go into what makes the games and what makes the test so well rounded in addition to the programming. So I think you need more of that than you do of something where people can compare themselves alongside of it. But I think the core of the games is like part of the core of the games is when people can do an event in their gym, they feel like they're a part of it because that's what CrossFit's all about. We all do the same workouts in the open, all that stuff. So it's important to have like, I guess, cornerstones like that, 1 or 2 throughout the course of the games. But I don't think that should be the default. I would definitely say people are going to watch something new and sexy and fun. Like, holy crap, did you see what those athletes just did? It was a crazy, like whether it's climbing pegboards or using odd implements and things like that. So I think that is more exciting for the viewer to watch, and especially in the days of social media where it's like you want a little bit of a wow punch factor to spike those views up. That's the stuff you need as long as it's not dumb.
Okay, you still gave an answer, so I'll give you 1 point. Ellia, which one are you leaning towards?
I definitely think that the exciting, unique stuff is what's going to get people actually watching the games. I think, programming a mile for time or something that is simple that a lot of people can do and compare their score. I don't think people care that much about comparing their score to the elite athletes. Everybody understands that these elite athletes are so far beyond the general population. It's like, oh wow, are they going to beat me by 3 minutes on the mile or 4 minutes on the mile? It doesn't matter. They're going to beat me. So, um, but I think seeing people walking on their hands, and for somebody who maybe has never done CrossFit before and sees that, they're like, oh my God, I didn't even know that was possible. Or just stuff that is like so outside of the norm that you would see on a regular basis in a gym or in sport in general. Just seeing kind of exciting and novel things, that's what gets people watching, because they'll see a glimpse of it and they'll be like, oh my God, I can't stop watching. This is so cool. I want to see more. So I think that's the kind of stuff that's going to encourage more viewership, and specifically viewership outside of people who already do and love CrossFit.
But even knowing that timing wise, this is going to be right in the middle of the Olympics, do you think that like the organic viewers that we might get tuning in, if we have a runner watching and they see athletes with very different body types than your typical runner, maybe running with sandbags or doing an implement, that like that could be more interesting to them?
Yeah, but then again, that's not just running. Like, that's not the simple stuff that they would be able to compare to. And I think, especially because it's happening during the Olympics, we need to stick to what we're good at, which is CrossFit. Because if we go into the simple stuff that everybody else does, they're going to say, why am I watching these subpar CrossFit athletes do it when I could turn on the Olympics on a different channel and watch the best in the world do that?
I would
Fair.
like
Tim, you were
almost
going to say
count.
something?
I would almost counter that for the exact opposite reason. Like, I still think that there's a lot of validity to what we do as athletes when it's like, again, like, yeah, I'm never going to sniff the mile time at the Olympics, like, by no stretch of the imagination. But I think, again, again, this is going back to media and branding, when you say, like, oh, look, this athlete just snatched 305, and then the next day they ran a 5 minute mile. Like that to me is like, oh, wow. It stands out as like, I guess, singularly impressive, because even if you only do one of those things, I think you can understand how impressive it is to be able to do both, even if you're not going to be able to necessarily maximize one. Whereas, like, when you look at a classic CrossFit workout, people outside of CrossFit are not necessarily going to understand intuitively how impressive that is. Whereas, like, the single modality stuff, it can stand out as like, oh, I know how impressive it is to run a 5 minute mile. And I know how hard it is to deadlift a bunch of weight or whatever. And when you can show an athlete that can do both and all this other stuff, I think that tells a really nice story as far as just how capable like elite CrossFit athletes are becoming.
Yes, but in order to make that comparison, you have to get them to watch the running event and then get them to come back and watch the lifting. Like, it has to be the whole picture. And if we're talking about somebody who just like flips through the channels, sees the CrossFit Games, and are they going to stay on that channel and watch, or are they going to flip to something else? I think it's the novel CrossFit stuff that's going to keep them watching.
Yeah, I guess like my mind goes back to like when I'm thinking viewership, like, yeah, watching the games is important, but like, I don't know, so is blowing up on Instagram, and like so is using your media department appropriately. And like I think that's like, again, like if you put the mile on TV, it's like there should be other stuff running around. During the commercial, there should be this, like as long as it's all looped together and you're telling those stories, it's like, if someone's gonna turn it off right away, they're gonna turn it off right away no matter what they see. Like if they're just like, oh no, I just want to watch swimming, like put this stupid idiot doing pull-ups like off my TV, like they were gonna do that anyway. Whereas if they're even mildly intrigued and they stick around for 10 minutes, they can learn a lot about what we do in 10 minutes, assuming, obviously CrossFit is doing a great job at expressing that, I think. Anyway,
All those
James, what
Great
do you think?
dialogue here.
I feel like you
Yeah.
guys covered it all. We can move on from this one.
Ellia, you get 3 points. James, come on, add a cherry. What are your thoughts? Come on.
They did. They covered all of it. I mean, I'm gonna fence it to the extent of like I would actually like to see data of like what people are watching. I don't pay a ton of attention to this, but I think back to that event a couple of years ago where they did like really heavy deadlifts and freestanding handstand push-ups. And the first round of that, I was like, oh, this is a cool idea. And then after that, I was like, It's not that cool. Like for me, and this is a total personal take, I like the simpler workouts. I like the foot races. That's kind of what hooks me in. But and both of you already said this. On top of that, I think what is really important is it's weaved into the overall story. Every time I've heard in the past of like, hey, these athletes are X amount of events in, and now they're going to go do this 1 rep max lift. Or these athletes are just coming off of this horrendous workout, and now they're going to do a max set of muscle ups or something like that. I think that is the most interesting part of it. And I do think there is some element of CrossFit where when you are mixing things together, that it is the most alluring and interesting to watch. You just can't have too many of like the crazy things where it's like ring handstand push-ups or freestanding handstand push-ups and like these really heavy deadlift weights. I think there needs to be like some semblance of like, ooh, I think I could go out to the garage and give that a shot, or I've seen somebody in the gym try that before. I do think that's what's the most enticing for maybe newer people or people in general. And then I think everyone who goes to the games, they just want to see all of the craziness, whether it's something simple or something really, really, really complex. Like I said, my answer is a fence-sitting answer here. For me, I like the more classic workouts, and anytime there's a foot race, I'm into it. So that's what I'd like to see.
James is a classic guy. I'll give you 1 point.
Oof. Brutal. That's fair.
Okay, we will move on. James is over the topic. I love the dialogue with Ellia and Tim, but we're going to go to topic number 3. We already know what Tim's answer is going to be, but I'm curious to hear James and Ellia. So we have the 6-time fittest woman on earth at the CrossFit Games, Tia-Clair Toomey. She took off last year to give birth to her daughter, Willow. She will be back. So the question is, can anybody take down the 6-time champ? And if so, what needs to happen in order for us to see this? Ellia, you're going to kick off our final round.
Oh man, I am so excited to watch the females this year. I think if anybody's going to beat Tia, it's going to be Laura. And I think that's really the only answer that anybody has who thinks that Tia can be beat at all. I think the fact that Laura beat her at Rogue, that was, even though Tia was just coming back, it was enough of a confidence boost for Laura to know that she can be beaten in some circumstances. And I think Laura is going into the games as a completely different competitor this year. And I think her confidence going in this year, knowing that it is possible to beat Tia, is going to make this a really, really cool race between the two of them. And I think it may come down to programming. If we see deficit handstand push-ups, maybe it's not going to happen. But I think it's going to be a close race between the two of them.
3 points for Ellia. James, what's your insight here?
I mean, any given Sunday, right? I think anyone is beatable. I think what's really scary about, and I will say this in this circumstance, and I don't typically find myself like a fan of anybody, and I also love repeat champions, but and so I think Tia's dominance has been extraordinary, and it's very fun to watch. But I do think Laura is awesome, and I'd like to see her win. Because I just think it's really cool. It plays the story out better, going into next year and just so on and so forth. But I think what's scary about Tia is if you look at her semifinals performance, the workouts she was winning, she won, demolishing the field in the long run, clean and jerk. And let's just assume for sake of argument that run, clean and jerk was the same across all semifinals. I know it wasn't. But, she's winning that event. She's finishing very close to the top in the heavy snatch ladder, or I don't know, moderate to heavy snatch ladder, be heavy for me. And then she's doing really well in a high skilled gymnastic workout with the legless rope climbs. And where she's losing, things like the handstands walks, she's not losing by a lot. And I think maybe there were a couple athletes, Alex Gazan or Gazan? I don't want to mess up her name. Alex Gazan. I think actually she's going to be a menace at the games. And I mean in a good way. Like she is a point stealer. I'm, 5th last year. I'm super curious to see how she does. So I think because everyone who has not beat Tia yet is getting better, there's a chance for them to steal points. Laura is consistently great. So like I said, any given Sunday, I think what's scary about it is that Tia would not have to perform. Tia would have to not perform well at the games. I think if she performs well, like she normally does, she's going to be very hard to beat. But things can happen. People can have bad rolls on the weekend, even champions. So there you go.
Okay, but going back to your point of Alex, so if we're saying that Laura Horvath is the person who's going to give Tia the best run for her money, how much are people like Alex Kazan, Emma Lawson going to play a part in stealing those points on who decides the champion? Is that going to be a major factor?
And it's who they take points from. I do think it'll be a major factor because, like I said, a lot of those ladies in the top 10, just have like this out of this world capability to win events. And like Alex, especially looking at her semifinals, and I was watching that video of her recently and Ricky doing the standard. Like, she's just a phenomenal athlete. So I do think that'll play a huge part in who wins and by how much they win by. But we'll just have to see how it all shakes out.
Okay. I liked your points there. 4 points for James. So it made up for that one round where you didn't do very well. Tim, I can imagine what you're going to say, but give us some shock value.
I mean, so I think what your question was exactly what, like, it's back in Fraser's dominant years. It's like not one person has to beat him, 10 people have to beat him regularly. And that's just honestly, I don't see a world where that happens with Tia. Again, getting to see a little bit of behind the scenes on kind of how she's prepping, how she's feeling. I mean, she's different than she was at Rogue, by way more than anybody would like to think is possible. Just in terms of recovery, coming back from pregnancy, things like that. So yeah, I mean, I honestly just don't see a world where she can be beaten based on seeing her training, seeing some of the crazy shit that she's done, wildly impressive things that like just kind of boggle the mind a little bit. And I think on top of all that, and like this is going to be a little bit of perspective, not something she has ever said or anything like that, but like I think just chatting to people in the camp, things like that, there is also this superpower. And I felt a little bit of this. Like when you have kids, like your perspective changes massively. And like she is still a savage. Like she is still built different, like driven to win. But like there is something very real about mom strength and like the perspective that it gives you and the way that it changes the like, the like just the way that you approach your life and the way that you see, I guess, importance and things like that. And again, this is just my perspective. I'm not by any stretch putting words in Tia's mouth or anything like that. But yeah, I think that has come on top of somebody who is already just built different, both mentally and physically. So yeah, I would put my house on Tia for sure.
So then, not putting words in Tia's mouth, but even just from your own perspective as a dad now of 2, does it change your why? Or when you go on the competition floor, are you doing it now for your kids and you're actively thinking about that? Or kind of what does it change mentally?
I mean, yeah, a lot of that, but also I think it's like, I don't know, like personally, there was a big like shift for me. Like this, you hear like release the outcome. Like when people release the outcome, they become far more powerful. And I think that like a lot of people who've had that experience would say that because I don't know, like you just become that much more obsessed with the process. And like, yeah, there's a change as far as like, wanting to provide for your family and wanting to be a good role model in multiple facets and like all of that kind of layers on top of it as well. But I think one of the biggest things is just the perspective shift that like there's a lot more that matters very, very deeply to you that is like in the long run of your life far more important than the outcome of one competition. And it doesn't change your drive to want to win, but it just like I said, I look at it as like a superpower because you're not as obsessed with the end state and you become a lot more obsessed with what gets you there. And I think that is very, very, very powerful. Like it unlocks some things that you just become less concerned about. And all of a sudden you're even more focused on the things that really matter and make a difference.
2 points for Tim. I want to go back to Ellia's point about the programming potentially mattering when it comes down to who ends up on top of the podium. is there a certain amount of events that potentially favor one or the other? Is there, some random odd object things that I would want to say would favor to Laura? But I'm curious on that dialogue. But Tim tilts his head.
I don't know. I think
I can't talk about some things, but there are impressive.
No, yeah,
things.
don't give away the secrets of what's happening there. We don't want to out anybody today.
Give it away.
Maybe after the games, if I get permission after the games, maybe.
Okay.
I think
I like it.
your point though is honestly more. I think it more. Again, I look back to like like Fraser's dominance and things like that because I followed the men's field much more closely for a long time. It wasn't going to change whether or not Matt won. It was going to change who came in second and third and how much Matt won by. And I view Tia very much the same way. I don't think the programming affects her just like well-roundedness and dominance. I think it more affects who could potentially steal points and maybe end up in second or third, or again, maybe who can close the gap more. Like, is the gap closer to Tia than it has been in years past? Maybe. But I think, again, just from a consistency across a long events, across the 14 event weekend, I think it more affects people down the leaderboard than it does the people who are consistently dominant and have shown that they don't have holes. I think it affects them far less.
Okay, we're going to now bring in Sean Woodland. He doesn't know that I'm doing this, but I want to enter Sean Woodland to the chat of the conversation. You do have to do the tie break, but I also want to get your thoughts on this.
My thoughts on programming?
No, on Tia going for a 7th, if anyone can beat her, how that happens.
Tim, I don't think, given what I saw in Europe, I don't know how anyone beats her. And I forget who it was, but brought up the deficit handstand push-ups. Like, that is clearly a known weakness for Laura Horvath. Well, what weakness does Tia have? And if she does have a weakness, where's she going to finish? 5th? 6th? Like that, where you're going to get her is, unless she trips up on a single under. Like, that was the one thing that has undone her the past year, that actually injected a little bit of excitement into the competition. When there was some doubt about, oh my God, we've never seen this before. Tia's actually struggling. But she goes and wins anyway, waltzes across the finish line to win her 6th championship. So yeah, Tim is absolutely right. Like, if you're going to beat her, it's not, you don't always only have to beat her. You have to get a bunch of help in the process. And I just don't think there are people out there that can do that. Now, does that mean that it's not going to be close? I think it will be closer, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know how you're going to beat her right now unless she, breaks her leg stepping off the bus or something. Like, and even then I still like her chances.
Will this be the year that the point spread between 1 and 2 is the closest?
No. 2017 will still be that.
Oh, okay. We stand corrected.
Yeah.
Okay, outside of 2017.
No.
Yeah, 2017 was like, what, 6 points? It was very close.
Points, I think it was really close.
Yeah, it was down to the last second of the announcement. Okay, Sean, you get to pick our winner.
Oh man, I'll go with. I like the comeback story, so I'll go with James.
I think this is number 4 for me.
Is it really? Wait.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, can we?
Of course you can.
James and Ellia still have their? Can she still have her time on the pedestal?
I mean,
that time.
You guys can tell me, I'm washed up. Like, I can take it.
You're not washed up. Like I said, I like
to take it, man.
I thought you were down and out after round 1 then, and all of a sudden storming back.
Nah.
Storming back. Okay, well, you know what? We are so close to the CrossFit Games. I'm going to let all of you guys have a little podium pedestal today. Get the good word out that's on your
but technically,
brain.
For the record, this win is mine.
For the record, on the record, James is the winner. So you get to lead us off.
Cool. I just want to encourage, all my fellow CrossFitters out there. Are we still, I don't know, CrossFitters. Yeah, all my fellow CrossFitters out there to try, maybe train, participate in an event that is kind of typically outside of the CrossFit time domain. So something in that, like, I don't know, maybe an hour plus. I've been doing a lot more endurance training lately. I'm not going to do it forever, for sure. I'm not very strong, and I never was, but I have liked how kind of focusing on this specific event has kind of trickled and improved some of my CrossFit related endurance. And it's just neat to try something totally different. And doing endurance training, I'm not worried about 20-minute AMRAPs, 25-minute AMRAPs. They do not feel like long workouts anymore. And that's a cool perspective change to have. So that's what I would encourage. Don't have to do it forever. Give it a shot. You'll be all right.
Oh, wow. I always feel like anything past 15 minutes is very long.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's a cool, like you do like an hour long workout or a 2 hour long workout or a, event or thing. And you're like 20-minute AMRAP. This is great. It's a sprint. So it's cool. It's a cool perspective to have. That's all I got.
It'll be considered. Thank you. Thank you for your canter. Ellia, you're up next.
I just want to give a quick shout out to my nonprofit. It's called the Rise Foundation, and we are going to be at the CrossFit Games. We'll have an activation at the Assault booth, probably either Friday or Saturday. More details to come on that, but you can follow us on Instagram. It's at rise_athletes_org. And we'll post some details on there about our activation at the games. We're also hosting a fundraiser on October 19th. Anybody at any gym that wants to participate is welcome to participate. And going back to what James was talking about, the entire premise of our Rise Up and Move fundraiser is just to move for an hour. So however you get your movement in for an hour, that's our fundraiser on October 19th. And we'll have more information about how gyms can get involved and participate in that. But if you're going to be in Texas, come see us at the Assault booth.
Great organization. Definitely will stop over. And Tim, last on the point board, last on the pedestal, but that's okay. We'll still listen.
That's all right. I mean, talking about anything after a nonprofit, I'm like, oh, damn it. I don't want to really. Yeah, I'm like, I guess I'll just shut up and go home. No, I mean, I'm just gonna give a shout out. Proven just released our app, so personal like kind of branded app for Proven, which is super exciting. Something we're really proud of, and the whole team's been working hard on. So check it out, guys. We'd love to see you on it. Come chat with us on the community boards.
Cool.
Awesome, team. Well, thank you so much for all being here. Another great episode on Death by. Listen, like, subscribe, all the things. And most of us, everybody except for James, will see you guys in Texas.